What up, folks? Ready for the next video. So, today I want to elaborate further on some concepts I brought up yesterday. And let's start with communication. I want to talk about consent, or the wheel of consent, more specifically. Consent. Well, let's start with consent. Consent's obviously a big hot topic these days and has been for the past couple years. And I'd say what it means to be in consent is just that all parties involved are a full yes to whatever's happening moment to moment, are a full yes. And let's start there. What does it mean to be a yes? What does it mean to be a no? What does it mean to be somewhere in between? Maybe like an I'm not sure or like a kind of yes. So here's a thought experiment. Let me ask you a question right now. Do you want to, like in this exact moment, do 20 jumping jacks? Do you want to? So I'm asking you this question. Sit with it. Internalize it. Do I want to do 20 jumping jacks right now? And say, listen to your body, actually. Let's do it this way. See what a yes feels like. So, yes, I want to do 20 jumping jacks. See what that feels like in your body. Just imagine the reality of doing 20 jumping jacks and see what that feels like. Okay. Now imagine the reality of saying no. Saying, I don't want to do 20 jumping jacks. And feel that in your body. What's the reality of not doing 20 jumping jacks feel like? Right? Notice, like, they feel different. The idea of saying yes to something feels different than saying no to it. And essentially for consent, I think in my opinion, the best barometer is listening to your body. Because in any given situation, in a sexual situation, an intimate situation, but also just a life situation, in sex, it's a series of offers being made. And the offers aren't always verbal and explicit. It's not always like, sometimes it is though. Sometimes it's like, hey, can I put my hand on your neck? Or sometimes like it's not explicit and verbal like that, and like the other person might just be like testing it out, touch your neck, and they notice you feel pleasure, and then just kind of slowly doing it, right? Anyways, so because sex, intimacy, any kind of intimate engagement or just like interaction between humans is a series of offers that people are giving back and forth, and the recipient of the offer can either accept the offer or reject the offer, essentially. And if they reject, they can give a counteroffer if they want. So getting back to how to know if you're a yes or no to something. So one thing that I think is helpful is to know exactly what a yes feels like. So here's one thought experiment that a friend showed me. I'm going to guide a very brief visualization. So if you're in a space where you can shut your eyes, see if you can do that right now. So shut your eyes for a moment and imagine that it's been raining for a while. It's been raining, it's been gray, the weather's been crummy, and you're going on a picnic, and you're really hoping for the picnic that the weather's nice. You want the sun to come out, but as you leave your house with your picnic basket, the sky is still gray. It's dark. It's not raining, but it's just dark and gray. So you walk a couple minutes, you get to the park, you're sitting at the park by yourself on this big, green, grassy lawn, and the sky is gray, and you're bummed. You want a beautiful picnic. You want to experience the joy of summer. And notice what it feels like in your body right now. Sitting here in this gray sky, sitting on this field by yourself with your picnic basket, hoping rain doesn't start falling. And then all of a sudden, you see a beam of sun come through, breaks through a cloud. And the clouds start to pass, and you see the sun coming out and illuminating the sky. You feel the warmth on your skin. You feel the opening of possibility into the day you wanted to have. The sky is suddenly blue. The thing that you wanted is actualizing. You can feel it happening. Now pause and see what that feels like in your body. Just notice what it feels like. What words come to mind? For me, it feels open. It feels expansive. My body feels light. My body feels excited. My body wants it. Okay. I'm going to take us out of that visualization. So you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. So the purpose of that activity, and I should say my friend Sam Kennedy showed me something to that effect. The purpose of that activity is just to get a sense or a clarity on what a yes actually feels like in your body. And so once you know what a yes feels like, when you're engaging intimately with someone, there's no reason to ever make a decision or accept an offer that doesn't feel like that. You can have everything you're doing in an intimate engagement feel like that. And the thing that feels like is desire. That's what you want. There's no reason to ever be out of desire in an intimate interaction, because you are empowered and you're in control to say yes to what you want to say yes to. And so if someone makes an offer and it doesn't feel like that, it doesn't feel expansive and open and like, yes, my body wants that, then don't say yes to it. You simply say no to it. And I understand like saying no isn't always simple. Like there's a lot of systemic pressures that make it harder for essentially non-white cis men to say no to things. I totally understand that. I understand that it's a path to like build the inner fortitude and voice in order to voice boundaries and say no. I know all that. I know all that's tough. And I acknowledge all that. And at the same time, every decision is also a simple yes or no. And you have the power when you're in consent to either say yes or no to anything. Okay. So I also want to just extrapolate that a little bit further. Because if you think about life in general, everything in life is also a decision. And you can also say yes or no. And if you say no, you can make a counteroffer to anything in life. Like if you are, if you think about the commitments you have in your life, I'll speak to my life. Like, you know, I'm with a partner right now. And this weekend I took a step back. I was on camping in the woods. And I just took a step back, actually from all my life commitments. And I just felt into them. And I thought about them and I journaled about them. But ultimately I was feeling like, like does staying with this partner in the way that we're staying together, does this feel like a yes? And it didn't actually. It didn't feel like a clear yes. A shift needed to be made. I didn't want to break up, but I knew that we needed to do something different. And we're also in the middle of a bit of a big processing. But anyways, I knew that something needed to shift. And the thing that needed to shift became clear to me because I wasn't a yes to how we were doing things. So the concept of being a yes or no and being in consent, in connection, I think is also really valuable to life, because if you're inviting in opportunities and relationships and connections and experiences into your life that you're a no to, or that you're not a yes to, then essentially what you're doing is you're living a life that doesn't feel open and expansive and in desire when you don't need to. And like also, yes, I also understand it's not that simple. I understand sometimes we have to work the shitty job in order to like build up the money to get the better opportunity, whatever. But the point I'm making is there are things in your life that you have control over letting go of if you don't feel like a yes to them, or changing them if you don't feel like a yes to them. And when you're given a new opportunity, I think it's a great metric for decision. Like, maybe it's not the only metric, right? Like sometimes you need to take a step back and use your mind. Like, does this fit into my life? Do I have space for it, etc.? But I think it's a good metric if someone's like, hey, do you want to collaborate on this project? Just sit in with it like, oh, yeah, that feels like a yes. It feels like a yes. Okay, so anyways, navigating intimacy and consent, I think that's why consent is powerful. And if both people are only operating in a sexual experience, if both parties are only operating out of saying yes to what they feel like a yes to, think of how good of an experience that is compared to if one party keeps doing things they're not that into, or like they feel like a no but they keep doing it anyways, or both people are doing that. Feel how contracted that chemistry and energy is where both people aren't expanded into what they want to be doing. But when both people are just a full yes and they're only operating out of yes, it synergizes, it creates magic, it puts both people on the same page, it like explodes the fusion of desire into like something beautiful. So let's talk about the wheel of consent. The wheel of consent is it's taking this concept of consent we just talked about, but it's actually adding an additional layer of nuance, or 2 layers. This was cool. Additional 2 layers of nuance. It's always funny talking. I can see myself in a camera, so I get to see my gesticulations, which I don't always have access to. Anyways, wheel of consent. So the wheel of consent, I'm just wary that the wheel of consent is often like confusing for people. Okay, it's The thing is, it's actually a pretty simple concept, but once it's grokked, but it can be like kind of tricky to grok at first. So I'm gonna get out a notebook here. And a Sharpie. Let's see your screen. Okay. So, the idea behind the wheel of consent is that I'll break it down into it's a wheel with 4 quadrants, okay? And essentially, with the wheel of consent, what it's saying is if you're interacting with a person in an intimate setting, you are either the one doing an action at any given time or the one who the action is being done to. Okay, so that's the first metric, or like first part of the framework. You're either the one doing the action or the one who the action is being done to, right? So let's take an example, massage. If I'm massaging you, I am giving the massage. I'm doing the action. It is my thumb pushing into your back. So I'm doing the action, you're receiving the action. Or let's say we're rolling around in bed and you're feeling aggressive and you take my face and you like smush it into the pillow. You're just like feeling fired up and you're wanting to smush my face, right? If that happens, you're the one doing the action, smushing the face. I'm the one who the action is being done to. And like, yes, I know, like if we're in a intimate interaction with a person, like it's not always cut and dry. Like it's not always one person massaging, you know, often it's kind of like this back and forth. But any given interaction, like you can like take any micro thing and there's always going to be one doer at any given time and one taker. Not necessarily doer and taker, but you see what I'm saying, like the person doing the thing and the person who the thing is being done to. Okay, so that's the first part of the paradigm. Person doing the thing, person who the thing is being done to. The second part of the paradigm is, well, let me draw this out actually. So we got this big circle, and then just drawing a line through the circle. I'm going to say doer and being done to. Hopefully my camera's not on mirror. Oh, it is, but maybe I can reverse it and edit it. Okay, so circle. Everything on this side of the circle is you're the doer. You're giving the massage or whatever it is. Everything on this side of the circle being done to. You're receiving the massage. Okay, we got that done. Great. Now, the other part of this framework is whose pleasure is it for? For every action, whose pleasure is it for? So, you can take the same action, but it can be for different people's pleasure. For example, let's say I am giving my partner a foot massage. If it's because she had a really long day at work and like she was on her feet a lot and she wanted the feeling of having her feet relieved, and she said, "Can you give me a foot massage?" I say, "Sure." Right. I'm doing the action, she's receiving the action, but the pleasure is for her. It is for her pleasure that she's receiving the foot massage. Okay. But maybe on a different occasion, I'm feeling kind of randy and I'm like, ooh, my partner has nice feet. I want to touch them. I want to feel how soft they are. I want to get my own pleasure out of giving her a foot massage. And she might enjoy it too, but ultimately I'm making the ask to give her a foot massage for my own pleasure because I want to experience that. Right? So you can have the same action, foot massage, but it can be for her or it can be for me. And you can look at that in any way. For example, like, let's say spanking. Another thing, like, maybe I ask somebody to spank me because I want to be spanked. I like pain. I'm a masochist. They're doing this thing to me and they're spanking me and they're glad to do it, but they're doing it because I enjoy being spanked or I enjoy surrendering to their control or whatever it is. Or maybe, you know, they love giving pain. They want to like feel some aggression. They want to spank me, so they're doing it for me. I'm happy to let that happen because, like, yeah, I also like being spanked, but I recognize this is for them. Okay. Now, this concept, I think, of who is it for, when I first learned about this, it wasn't even into the context of wheel of consent, but it was really powerful because in my first relationship with my partner, I was pretty anxious and like needy. I didn't have my own sense of purpose really, didn't really have a strong sense of community. She was like the only thing in my life. I moved to live with her. I loved her very dearly, but like I was needy, quite frankly. And I don't know if you've come across attachment theory listening to this. Maybe I'll explain that later in more detail. But essentially, like in that relationship, she was avoidant and I was anxious. So I was always like, I need more touch, I need more intimacy, and she was always like, I need space, I need space. And often in relationships, one person will be in one of those poles at any given time. And funnily, in my current relationship, I am the more avoidant partner, whereas in that one, I was the more anxious partner. Anyways, though, I would always, she was depressed for a period, and I would always ask her, like, hey, can I give you a hug? And I believed I was doing it to, like, help her. I believed I was like, she's depressed, and also I want connection, but she's depressed, and I want to hug her and, like, give her touch and warmth. And at one point, she gave me a reflection, and she said, like, hey, whenever you give me those hugs, they're unenjoyable. Like, they feel really, like, clingy and like you're taking something from me. And I remember when I heard that, at the time I was younger, I was probably offended. Like, what? How could you say that about me? But in retrospect, yes, I was unknowingly, the hug was for me. I was asking if she wanted a hug, but ultimately I wanted the hug. It was for me. And I didn't realize that it was for me. And so it was getting all like messed up, and like it probably felt creepy or weird in some way because I was asking for something that was actually for my pleasure, but I was pretending to myself and to her that it was for her pleasure. So that's why it's useful to know at any given time, who is it for? I'll give one more example of why that's important. The other day I was massaging my current partner, and I was actually massaging her for my own pleasure. I was just appreciating touching her body, exploring, the curvature of her rib, feeling like the indent underneath the rib, and like I was just having an enjoyable sensory experience touching her body. And then she started giving me instructions. She said, actually, hey, can you go up and go a little harder in there? And I started feeling like resentful or like annoyed because it wasn't clear to either of us who the massage was for because that wasn't communicated. So she assumed it was for her, and it actually was for me. And so when she was giving me instruction on doing something, I was like, wait, this is this thing I'm doing for my own pleasure, and you're taking me away from what I want to be doing. And we were able to talk through that, and it was fine, but it was useful to know that like a massage is different depending on who it's for. And it's good to know ahead of time. And it can be for both people too, which we'll get to in a sec. So, who is the pleasure for? So I'm going to add on this little chart I have. So we've got right side is the doer. Remember we talked about that. Left side is being done to. I'm going to say top is the pleasure is for you, and the bottom is the pleasures for the other person. Okay? So top, pleasure for you, and then the bottom is pleasure for other. Okay, boom. So here we got our graph thingy. Up and down, pleasure for you, pleasure for other, left and right, doer, being done to. So what this paradigm does is it breaks the circle into 4 quadrants depending on these 4 variables. So I'll show this to you in a sec. So the top is the pleasure is for you, and you're the doer. So in the wheel of consent, that's called taking. The bottom right, the pleasure is for the other person, but you are the doer. In the wheel of consent, that's called giving. Also, I should say that I've seen different people who explain this model give different words for these, so if you see this model, you might actually come across different words, but the concept is the same. Pleasure, let's do this, top left. The pleasure is for you, and the action is being done to you. So that means you are the receiver, or you are receiving. And then the last quadrant here, the pleasure is for the other person, and the action is being done to you. And this we'll call allowing. Okay. Okay. So here we have it. Now, we'll notice that, like, typically, maybe I'll get a different color. Whatever, this works. Allowing and taking go together because taking, so here's an example. Taking is the pleasure is for you, and you're the doer. So let's say you want to here's a fun one. Let's say you want to eat your partner's asshole. You want to eat your partner's butt. Okay, you want it for you. You are doing the action. You're doing the eating, eating or licking or whatever. And the pleasure is for you. You're doing it, and you love butt. You love asshole, so the pleasure's for you. Now your partner, let's say they're not turned off by it. They're fine with it. They're still a yes to it. But it's not like they're big. They recognize that the pleasure is for you. So they're allowing you to do an action to them, which is eat their asshole, for your own pleasure, right? So that's fine. It's fine to be an allower. It can be nice to be an allower because you're watching your partner get pleasure out of, in this case, your own body, and that can be incredibly gratifying. Now there are situations too where like both you eat your partner's asshole, and that's also really pleasurable for them too. So like, it can be the pleasure is for both people. But to simplify the paradigm, we have taking and allowing go together, and then we have giving and receiving go together. And so in this example, very simple example, again, let's make a more interesting example. Let's say actually, here's one I often use. My chest and my nipples are really sensitive. My chest is really sensitive. So are my nipples, but it's a different story. So often, like, when I'm cuddling with someone, I'll say, "Hey, can you just like scratch and rub your fingers around my chest?" So they're doing the action to me. They're the doer, but the pleasure is for me. So I'm receiving the pleasure, and and they're doing the action for me. It's great being a receiver. You can just surrender. And then the giver, my partner's doing the action. They're stroking their fingers around me, but they know it's for my pleasure. And again, being a giver can be very gratifying also. I love giving massage. I love giving massage for my partner. It's a beautiful way to give. And receiving is fucking great too, because you can completely surrender and let go. Taking is great because you can just be a fucking animal and like you can just do the thing that you want for you, assuming obviously that your partner's in consent, and that feels good to just take what you want. And then allowing is also great. Again, like I personally love my body, and I love when people love my body, and if someone can get pleasure from doing something in my body, that's fucking great. So that's the wheel of consent. Now, I'm wondering if I want to touch on this now or in the next call. Okay, I'll talk about this more in the next call about how to create containers to practice different aspects of your sex and intimacy. But I'll introduce one idea. This idea is called the 3-minute game. I cannot recommend this game enough. If you have a partner, play it with your partner. Seriously, I try and do this with every partner, and like, it's a great way to learn about consent. It's a great way to learn about who the pleasure's for. It's a great way to try new things. It's a great way to open up desires. So here's what you do. You see these 4 quadrants? You write down slips for each one. So let's say Mike, and I'm playing this game with Danny. Okay? So we'll first take the allow. We'll write Mike allows Danny like this, and then I'll cut that into a strip. And then I'll write Danny allows Mike, and I'll cut that one into a strip. And then I'll write Mike takes from Danny, cut that into a strip. Danny takes from Mike, cut that into a strip. Right, so you have 2 strips for each quadrant, so you have 8 strips total. Mike takes from Danny, Danny takes from Mike. Mike gives to Danny, Danny gives to Mike. Mike allows Danny, Danny allows Mike. Mike receives from Danny, Danny receives from Mike. Okay, so you have all those 8 strips. Put them on a hat, or a cup, or like a singing bowl. Those like meditation bowls. Doesn't matter. You put it in a cylinder. Okay, you're with your partner. You shake it up. You pull one out. Let's say you pull out Mike takes from Danny. Okay? Mike takes from Danny. So what that means, Mike takes from Danny. I get to make a request where I'm taking for 3 minutes. And so I'll say, Danny, I want to take. Danny, can I, this would give me a lot of pleasure. Can I like just get behind you and like just pull your hair, sit behind you and pull your hair. I want to do the action to you, and it'll give me a lot of pleasure. And Danny thinks about it, they feel into it, they say yes. Or they say, no, that doesn't feel good, but can we do, or they make a counteroffer, or you negotiate until you find the thing, okay? And then you put on a timer for 3 minutes, and then you do the thing. I pull the hair, whatever. 3 minutes ends, we stop. It's important to stop. That makes the container safe. And then we talk about it. How was it? Did you like that? What did you not like? What did you like? What did you learn? We should do it again. Cool. Okay, great. And then we draw the next one. Let's say we have Danny receives from Mike. So in that case, again, Danny says, okay, what do I want you to do to me for my pleasure? I want you to give me a earlobe massage. I want you to just rub my ears for 3 minutes. Okay. The only tricky one I'll explain is allow. If I draw Mike allows Danny, or Mike allows from Danny, then essentially I'm Mike because I'm creating the action. So Mike allows Danny. So I'm gonna make a proposal where Danny does something to me for their pleasure, and it might not be something Danny would normally pick, but Danny is doing the action with the intent of giving themselves pleasure. So if I draw Mike allows Danny, I can say, Danny, can you give me can you scratch my back? But I need you to scratch my back for your pleasure. Do it in a way that feels good to you. Okay. If you have questions about that, PM me. Let me know. But I think that should make sense. So anyways, go through all of them, after each one talk about it, and this game is really fucking brilliant because it gives you a really safe way to just explore new creative ideas in connecting with each other. Like, I guarantee if you play this game, you'll learn a lot. I'm considering next time talking more about containers, but we'll see, because this game is one form of a container, and I've mentioned the concept of containers before. It's just such a powerful concept, and it is, in my opinion, a game changer for relationships and for learning about intimacy and sexuality. It just allows for so much more intentionality. Okie doke. That's all I got today. Alright. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you on the next one.